Welcome once again to A Word of Hope for Monday of the second week of Advent. It is also a day in which we celebrate St. Ambrose, who had such great influence on St. Augustine, and so it is worth our calling him to mind. During this Advent season, as I mentioned yesterday in A Word of Hope, there was from Isaiah a sense of great consolation, comfort. So likewise, the text from Isaiah continues and speaks about that time when the eyes of the blind will be opened, the ears of the deaf will be cleared. In other words, these great visions that Isaiah has about a time when what we yearn for will come to pass. And indeed, during these pandemic days, we do look toward when will this come to a close. But at the same time, we are not yet there. We are here in the midst, seeking those words of comfort. I'd want you to be familiar with an age-old tradition going back as far as Augustine, in which they talk about the threefold birth of Christ. The threefold birth. The first being, of course, the birth of Christ, the Word, within the Trinity itself, the only begotten Son. Then the second birth in history, from Mary, from the womb of Mary, historically, the Word incarnate among us. But the third birth to which they refer is the birth of Christ, the birth of the Word in us today, in us today. So that as we look toward the future, as we look toward Christmas, it's not just that we celebrate a past event, but we're conscious of the birth of the Word among us and within each of us today. Interestingly, even Eckhart, the mystic, 14th century, said, what was the greater privilege for Mary, our Blessed Mother? The birth of the Word in her womb or the birth of the Word in her soul? And he said the greater privilege was really the birth of the Word in her soul, as difficult as that might be for us to believe. Nevertheless, it points out to what we are being challenged with in the midst of the world, the stresses within which we find ourselves. What good is it if the Word was once born historically 2,000 years ago, if the Word is not being born among us today? And so that is the challenge with Isaiah, with Advent, to, yes, prepare the way of the Lord, not just for a future coming, even a second coming down the road, but for the coming of the Lord in our hearts and souls this very day. Let's you and I today give birth to the Word in our midst. Let the Word come alive among us today. God bless you, and may the Word be with you as you give Him birth among us. Thank you.